You know, guys, sometimes the stars just kind of align on some things. Just as I'm getting ready to do this video, not only has my Heat Ray 2014 shipped and should get here in about a week or so. Oh my God, come on now. All right, I'll get that later. Not only is that on its way, but today, just now, I also got this guy come in. It's an old NECA 2014. This actually showed up on the Godzilla store randomly for some reason. This was not expecting an OG clamshell NECA figure, but hey, that's on the Godzilla store now if you're interested. In this series, we're going to be taking a look at every single Hiya Exquisite basic figure in the Godzilla line. Every repaint, reissue, 2.0, whatever they put out, we're going to be taking a look at them all in release order. Let's get started. Today, we are taking a look at the Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Godzilla 2014. This is a video I have been looking forward to making for a very long time now. Godzilla 2014 is still probably my favorite MonsterVerse movie. It is such a solid, and it might just be still my favorite design for Godzilla in the MonsterVerse. And over the last decade or so, we have had plenty of options when it comes to Godzilla 2014 figures. But I don't think I would be alone in saying that none of them quite scratched that itch. And we've all just been waiting for someone to finally get us the definitive 2014 figure. Now, Hiya Toys, right around this time, did give us our first ever highly articulated muto figure. Have they now delivered the definitive 2014 figure to go alongside it? I don't think I would say that, but this is definitely one of the best 2014 figures we have gotten. So going right into the sculpted detailing, guys, Hiya really stepped up their game here. If you were someone who felt that the KOTM mold looked a little soft, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised here, because while this is still a 3D sculpted figure, they've really honed in on those fine details here. Look at all of that plating. It looks so good here as it fades up into the crotch area. That beautifully sculpted texturing here on the plates, going into the rough skin pattern right there on the inner thigh. It just looks amazing, especially with the transition to different types of textures. Just look at this transition from the front gills here into the back plating. If I had any nitpicks at all with the sculpt, it would be that it's a little inconsistent in some areas. For example, again, just look how finely sculpted this skin texture is here on the side. But then you get here to the ass part of the figure, and it does look noticeably softer. The same could be said about the difference between how fine the details are on the legs compared to the arms. There is good sculpted detailing here on the arms, but the sculpt is, again, noticeably softer, especially here on the shoulders when compared to, say, the plating at the bottom of the legs there. Unfortunately, where things kind of took a nosedive is going to be on this headpiece, and that's going to be a downgrade in more ways than one. The sculpt of the head really isn't that bad. You do get a lot of details that are going to be present on the KOTM mold. But my main issue with the sculpt on the head is going to be these teeth. Now, I don't think they're terrible. I think that has more to do with the paint apps on them, but they just aren't that well defined. Again, especially compared to what they did on the KOTM figure. Also, the inside of the mouth is a pretty big step back compared to how Hiya usually sculpts interior of mouths. That tongue piece, for example, is just kind of a stick of plastic, and there isn't a ton of detailing on the roof of the mouth. Again, more of a nitpick. I still think this is a decent enough head sculpt that the paint just kind of fails, but we'll get to that. Actually, I suppose that's as good of a transition as any to just get right into the paint. So let's look looking back at the head now. Again, those teeth, the paint apps on the teeth are very sloppy. They don't bleed out onto the figure that much. It's just that they've over-applied coats of paint so that you lose all of the detail that I could only assume is there. Whoops. We'll we'll get to that as well. Now, what's also going to be a little annoying is that the front of the nose here looks like it has a little bit of like wet red paint. I don't think that's intentional. I think that's actually the wash they applied to the teeth that they just accidentally applied to the front of the mouth here. Very unfortunate. All right, let's talk about these eyes now. Now, as you all probably know, I'm usually very impressed by Hiya's attention to detail on such tiny things like their eyes. I'm not gonna lie, for the most part, I'm still okay with these eyes. That is an absolutely microscopic eye, and they still managed to get a pupil painted on there, even if it's more of an impression than one than anything. And it does look good enough, I would say. Now, what's especially odd about these eyes is the fact that they're painted white when they should be painted yellow. Now, we actually do know why this is the case. For some reason, this is a licensing issue. It's just unclear what the issue is exactly. Again, I'm okay with it. It would have been nice, obviously, to get movie-accurate eyes, but it is what it is. Outside of the head, this figure is phenomenally painted. Holy shit. This figure is primarily going to be painted in two tones. The entire back half is going to be in this excellent charcoal gray, and the front half is going to be in this desert sand color. And they're excellently blended in with these browns, these darker tans going into browns as it fades between this skin tone and the scales. I mean, once again, Hiya's really outdone themselves here. And on top of all of that, you have this tan wash applied, at least on the legs, and very subtle dirt browns applied on the upper back and the spines here, which gives this figure a very sophisticated paint scheme without going too far into that original KOTM paint app. Now, the one area I would say that they needed to tone back a little bit would be the forearms here. Just like the body, the hands and the arms are going to be this tan color on the inside as it transitions to that dark gray on the outside. But on the forearms, I feel like they got a little too carried away with the tans there. The tan is very striking. It stands out a lot when you catch the arms in a certain angle. Now, this sculpt wasn't the only thing Hiya completely redid. Let's now talk about the articulation. We're going to start with the head. Now, the head... my head is like to pop off a lot, so you might see that happen quite a bit here. The head can look down about that far, and it can look up about that far, and it is able to turn, oh, yep, there it goes, side to side a decent amount. We're going to talk about that neck just a little bit. You can get it to turn about that much, which is a little better than the KOTM mold. The shoulders are on ball joints. They can go out about that far, and they can rotate all the way around. The elbows are actually now double jointed. So this is, I think, a pinned hinge. It can swivel above the elbow, but it can hinge forward. And then this is on a ball joint, actually, with a hinge. So you can get the arms curled almost all the way up like that. Look at that. Incredible. That's about the most you're going to get the arms straightened out. And then the hands are on ball joints. So a very nice upgrade to the arms right there. The waist is on a ball joint. It's still pretty limited. It gets a little less range than the the KOTM mold, but it moves a lot better here. So you get just kind of a little bit of a rocker. The thighs, they can go in towards the body about that much, and they can splay out a decent amount, and they can kick all the way around. The knees are double jointed, but here above the knee, they've actually sculpted it in so that the leg collapses inside of itself like that. And then under the knee, you have a pinned hinge where it actually will hinge back like so. And then you can rotate it all the way around there. But what that system allows you to do is you can get the leg bent all the way like that. I mean, that's an incredible amount of range for this design. And the ankles, unfortunately, the ankles are still Hiya's Monsterverse ankles. You cannot kick them back at all. You can only kick them forward a little bit, and they go side to side just a little bit. And now we get to the tail. All of these segments are ball joints once again, but they've improved the material and the range of the ball joint. Unfortunately, you don't get much range from the base of the tail, but as you go down, look at that. A nice, beautiful curve. And it holds together pretty well. Mine does pop off in one spot that I've kind of learned just not to put a ton of pressure on. You can still put a lot of pressure on it though, and it won't go anywhere. It can go up about that far, and you can get it all the way down. These joints feel so nice. It's, again, a remarkable improvement that allows you to get some pretty natural curves, like so, or even an S curve. Now this would be as good of a segment as any to talk about the neck. Wait for it. This is a new system they engineered for 2014, where it is a double barbell system with this fat fucking socket in the middle. Now, unfortunately, because of all of these sleeves on it, and because of how small these barbell joints actually are, it does inherently limit the range that you get from the head. So again, for example, you can only get the head down about that far, even though if you were to take off all of these neck sleeves, you should be able to get the head all the way down and conversely all the way up. So it's a bit unfortunate. Let's talk about accessories, because believe it or not, this figure does actually come with a pair of fists. Very cool to see that this is becoming standard with Hiya's Godzilla figures. And as you saw earlier, yeah, the hands just kind of pop off. They're just on ball joints. And you just pop the fists on relatively easily. Okay, I might need to heat these up. 1 second. All right, sorry about that. These fists have been sitting in storage for like a year now. So normally this is actually very easy to replace, but mine's just been sitting in a cold garage for like a year. So yeah, they just pop on, just like so. And just like so, you have Godzilla 2014 ready to throw down. And with these new elbow joints, oh man, is it easy to get them into some really fun poses. All right, let's now talk about size. So, just like the Muto we took a look at a couple videos ago, this figure is actually a slightly smaller scale, roughly 6 inches or so, maybe 6 1/4 if you count those spines there. And in terms of length, it's going to be approximately 14 inches long, give or take. All right, so what's going on here? Is this a sign that Hiya is scaling the line down to 6 inches? No, not really. All that's happening here is that Godzilla in the 2014 film was actually smaller than he appeared in King of the Monsters and onwards. So all they've done is just scale down the 2014 figure line to be a little more film accurate, and that's something that I personally appreciate. But I do understand completely if you would have preferred they remained in the 7-inch scale across the board. So going now into some figure comparisons, let's just take a look at how he compares to the KOTM mold. Again, this is technically the pre-evolved, it's all the same mold. So that is the scale difference there between the 2014 film figure line and all of Hiya's other figures. And transitioning along now, here is how the figure looks next to the Muto from 2014, as well as King Ghidorah, again to kind of show you the difference here between how this will scale with other Hiya figures. And just for the sake of things, here's once again how it scales next to Hiya's other Godzilla figures. Here's how this scales next to a couple other SH Monster Arts figures, one of Super 7's Super Kaiju figures, and one of Bandai's action figures. And here's how this figure would look next to a Titanic Creations figure and a SH Figure Arts figure. And here is, of course, how the figure looks next to a very bruised banana. I think it's time for me to go get some new bananas. All right, now let's wrap this video up. So what do I think of Hiya Toys' Godzilla 2014? I think this is a fascinating release. Just like their Skull Island Kong, I think we're witnessing in real time Hiya Toys evolving how they engineer these figures. This figure is not perfect. I think that they could still push a lot of things further, but I think they're experimenting with how to push things further with this figure. The tail, for example, is so much better than the KOTM mold, but it's still lacking in true expressiveness. You cannot get the tail curved all the way around to the side, but it really feels like that's what they wanted to do and are just kind of getting their toes in the water on how to do it. The legs are a perfect example of this, where I think they've really kind of perfected how to do knees on MonsterVerse Godzilla. Unfortunately, those ankles, the ankles on Hiya's Godzillas are something that I feel they desperately need to improve, and they just aren't doing it yet. But again, I feel this is a transitional figure into what we might get later on. The elbows are fantastic. The shoulders are basically the same. They're not bad. The waist also feels like they're kind of trying to figure out how to get more range out of a big fat design like this. And they have not cracked the code yet, but I'm very excited to see where they go from here. As for the neck, all right, well, they are experimenting with new neck techniques. In theory, this neck has really good range, but the neck sleeves just prevent it from being able to do anything at all. At least not anything more than we've been able to do on other MonsterVerse Godzillas. I'm almost curious if the sleeves are just a bad idea in general. Yeah, they look good, but clearly they're prohibitive from proper engineering. At the end of the day, this is a fantastic Godzilla 2014 figure. It looks like it just walked off the screen. It has a lot more range than the KOTM mold. The paint is exceptional. The tolerances are pretty good. There's a couple spotty areas, but again, I'll chalk that up to them just kind of experimenting with new engineering techniques. Looks great with their muto. Looks great with their other stuff. And because it's in a 6-inch scale, it looks great with other toy lines. If you have Monster Arts figures, this is a great inclusion to throw in there. It's a good scale. It's a good figure. I highly recommend this. It's just, let's clean up that head next time, Hiya. I don't know what went wrong here, but this is the exception to an otherwise fantastic line of head sculpts. But hey, those are my thoughts on the Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Godzilla 2014 figure. Let me know what you think of this figure. Do you have it? Do you have the recently released Heat Ray version? And yes, we will be taking a look at that figure in, 2 months or so. We still got, believe it or not, a shit ton of releases to get through before we catch up. But until next time, guys, see ya!